Welcome to this video on Justice on the Front Range, the Haywood murder trial, 1907. We will explore the pivotal question: when the law meets the minds, who really holds the power? The Haywood murder trial, held in the Boise County Courthouse from July 12 to 22, 1907, was a defining moment for Idaho. The question was whether mining foreman John Jack Haywood murdered his business partner, Samuel Sam Kincaid. This trial shaped Idaho's modern evidentiary standards. The trial of Big Bill Haywood took place in the Boise County Courthouse in July 1907. Haywood, a mining foreman, was accused of murder. This event became a critical test for evidentiary standards in the region. Haywood's trial remains important today because it tested free speech rights and was a major turning point in American labor law. The case also demonstrated how political power can influence the judiciary and reshaped the tactics used by unions and corporations. Our learning objectives are to identify the case's facts and legal issues and analyze the prosecution's and defense's key strategies. We will also evaluate the trial's impact on labor law and civil liberties and reflect on lessons modern movements can draw from Haywood's experience. The Coeur d'Alene district experienced rapid growth alongside dangerous working conditions, low wages, and no safety nets. Labor unrest, triggered by hazardous conditions and corporate monopolies, led to the formation of the Western Federation of Miners. The Western Federation of Miners, or WFM, formed due to hazardous working conditions and corporate monopolies. Economic pressures were a major factor in the formation of this important labor union during a time of labor unrest. Miners faced dangerous conditions, low wages, and a lack of safety nets. Born in 1869, William Big Bill Haywood transitioned from miner to influential union organizer. Haywood was a charismatic speaker who rallied workers across the West. He became a symbol of radical labor activism and a founder of the Industrial Workers of the World, or IWW. Former Idaho Governor Frank Stonenberg was assassinated by a bomb planted at his gate near his Caldwell, Idaho home in 1905. This murder ignited widespread public outrage. Violent confrontations defined the Coeur d'Alene strike, with dynamite and armed guards central to the conflict. The Mines War culminated in a 1906 Bunker Hill mine raid, ultimately leading to the controversial 1907 Haywood arrest. Harry Orchard confessed to murdering Stonenberg, claiming he was a paid assassin for the WFM Union. His detailed and sensational confession implicated high-ranking WFM officials and was the core of the prosecution's case. The prosecution charged Haywood with a murder conspiracy, including conspiracy to commit murder in the first degree. Haywood also faced accusations of inciting a riot, and the indictment alleged he aided in the use of explosives for sabotage. The defense team for Haywood was led by Clarence Darrow. Prosecutor James Hawley presented the state's case, which heavily relied on the testimony of key witness Harry Orchard. The defense focused on discrediting Orchard's testimony. Prosecutor John H. Hadley had a strong anti-union stance, stemming from his background as a Republican former newspaper editor. His motives included protecting corporate interests and establishing a strong legal precedent. He was known as a law and order crusader. The prosecution's core argument, presented by James Hawley, relied heavily on Harry Orchard's testimony. Orchard confessed to the murder and implicated WFM officials. The entire argument centered on the WFM's alleged use of a paid assassin. The prosecution's opening themes centered on Haywood as the mastermind of violent union sabotage. They used rhetoric that emphasized the danger to public safety and focused on evidence, including explosives and eyewitness testimony, to sway the jurors against Haywood. Dynamite evidence, while documented with photographs, proved flawed. A diagram showed possible gaps in the chain of custody. The explosives were visually compared to generic mining charges, and the contrast helped the defense demonstrate reasonable doubt. The prosecution's principal witness was Harry Orchard, who confessed to the murder and implicated WFM officials. His sensational confession formed the core of the state's case, presented by prosecutor James Hawley. Charles D. McClure was a key prosecution witness, claiming he heard Haywood urge miners to arm themselves. However, cross-examination exposed McClure's bias and inconsistent statements, deeply questioning his credibility due to conflicting testimony. Witness James Larkin, a company guard, identified Haywood near the explosives. The defense challenged this identification due to poor lighting conditions, suggesting it was a case of mistaken identity. A graphic illustrated the darkness of the night. Medical examiner Dr. Bickley confirmed injuries consistent with an explosion, ruling out a gunshot. The defense argued the report did not link Haywood to the injuries. The testimony reinforced the scientific nature of the case's evidence. The prosecution relied heavily on Harry Orchard's testimony. Orchard confessed to the murder and implicated WFM officials, forming the core of the state's case. The argument centered on the WFM's alleged use of a paid assassin. The defense challenged the credibility of the state's key witnesses. Clarence Darrow relentlessly questioned Harry Orchard's testimony, portraying him as a professional criminal and a liar to discredit him before his testimony. The intense face-off between Orchard and Darrow was pivotal. Orchard confessed to assassinating former Governor Steunenberg, implicating WFM leaders. Darrow aimed to destroy his credibility by portraying him as a professional criminal and a liar. The defense's counter-narrative challenged Harry Orchard's credibility, with Clarence Darrow's team focusing on discrediting his testimony. They aimed to reveal a state conspiracy against the Union, arguing Orchard was a professional criminal and a liar. The defense team included Clarence Darrow, a renowned civil liberties lawyer and champion of American labor rights. George R. Goss, a seasoned Idaho attorney, provided critical knowledge of the state's legal nuances. Darrow affirmed that organizing is a birthright. Darrow's opening statement was powerful and dramatic. He portrayed Haywood as a symbol of labor, framing the trial as a political attack on the Union. His primary goal was to discredit Orchard before his critical testimony. The defense themes portrayed Haywood as a labor movement symbol and framed the trial as a political attack against the Union. Darrow's powerful statement aimed to discredit Orchard before he could testify. The trial tested the constitutional boundaries of free speech and became a major turning point for American labor law. The Haywood trial demonstrated how political power can weaponize the judiciary, setting important precedents for civil liberties and labor rights. The defense presented key witnesses to establish Haywood's character, with family and friends painting him as a devoted man. His associates offered alibi testimony for crucial periods, and experts were called to challenge Orchard's claims and methods. The defense made a surprising presentation of the Haywood letter to an organizer, which emphasized peaceful tactics. This dramatic reveal, recorded in the court reporter's diary, shifted the verdict by undermining the prosecution's conspiracy theory. Clarence Darrow's closing appeal focused on establishing reasonable doubt. He framed the trial as a political attack on labor and challenged the credibility of the key prosecution witness. The final argument aimed to reveal a state conspiracy. In the defense's final appeal, Darrow argued for reasonable doubt and portrayed the trial as a political attack against labor. He challenged the key witness's credibility to reveal a state conspiracy against the Union. The prosecution's final appeal called for deterrence to protect mining towns and emphasized the danger of anarchy. The goal was to establish a strong precedent, arguing that allowing violence incitement sows the seeds of chaos. The judge's instructions informed the jury of their duties, covering applicable law and evidentiary standards. They emphasized the requirement for proof beyond a reasonable doubt and addressed the credibility of accomplice testimony. The jury deliberated intensely, focusing on determining guilt beyond a reasonable doubt and considering the weight of accomplice testimony. Ultimately, they reached a final verdict in the Haywood murder trial. The jury found William Big Bill Haywood not guilty. This verdict was a major victory for the labor movement, undermining the state's conspiracy allegations and demonstrating limits on corporate power in the courts. The not guilty verdict for William Big Bill Haywood was a huge victory for labor. It undermined the state's conspiracy allegations and demonstrated the limits of corporate power in the court. The verdict became a turning point for American labor law. Haywood's acquittal undermined state conspiracy allegations and demonstrated the limits of corporate power, ultimately helping reshape tactics for unions and corporations. The Haywood trial set precedents for labor free speech defenses and increased scrutiny of state prosecutions against union leadership. The national solidarity sparked by the verdict led to the important 1912 Bunker Hill arbitration. Haywood's acquittal was a major victory for the labor movement and a turning point in American labor law. The verdict demonstrated limits on corporate power and undermined the state's conspiracy allegations, reshaping union and corporate tactics.